Hey everyone, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lifter Show. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Tighe. Paul is a strength conditioning and fellow online personal trainer. Paul, first appearance on a podcast today, first in many, no doubt. Welcome to the Lifestyle Lifter Show, my man. Thanks for being here.
Hey Adrian, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Yeah, it's my first time. Definitely a little bit nervous, but yeah, excited about it, and yeah, just looking forward to kind of getting into it.
Awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Well, let's get straight into it. So, Paul, tell for any of our listeners out there who maybe aren't aware of you or your content or what you offer. First of all, just share a bit about yourself, about your backstory, about what got you into the fitness world initially.
So I guess I came from a really sporty family growing up, and we all got national titles in some form, whether it was in running or in swimming. From that, we just got into more and more sport. Like most young lads, I wanted to be a professional athlete then. Didn't quite work out for me. I got into the Center of Excellence for Triathlon over in the UK. I got injured quite a bit there and kind of just tried to figure out, why was that? At the time, I was studying physical education, which I loved, but for me, I just wanted something a little bit more and to figure out, why was my body going through what it was going through. So I had a really good lecturer there at the time called Mike Gray in physiology. So I started going more towards the physiology side of work. So what I did then was I decided every single elective I was taking, I was going to try and make it more towards physiology, more towards sports performance. After I finished my undergrad, I moved on to my master's. So I had a master's in sport and exercise physiology. And like during that, I got to get into a lot of internships with the likes of British Athletics, British Surfing Association. So I was really lucky because there was a good load of lecturers there who had a lot of good ties to big professional teams.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah.
Worked in professional rugby from there. I've got a good story about how I got my first professional job, but I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
I'd
we'll go.
love to hear that. Yeah, well, what teams did you actually work with when you were coaching professional rugby, Paul?
So I work with in Union. I work with Yorkshire Carnegie Rugby Union team in the Championship, and then I moved over to League, and I worked with the London Broncos down in London, obviously.
Awesome.
But the first, the way I got my first ever job in professional sport was I needed to use the toilet while I was on a watt bike in a gym. I think it's kind of if opportunities present themselves, yes, you're lucky, but you have to also go and take them and be in the right position to take them. So I was on a watt bike. Like I said, I was in the Center of Excellence for Triathlon, so I was training, doing a bit on the watt bike, and the urge came to me that I needed to go to the toilet. So I was looking around. I was like, "This is the only good watt bike at the gym. I don't really want to leave this one." So I saw this other man getting up, and I turned around and said, "Excuse me, would you mind looking after this watt bike just while I pop the toilet?" So popped the toilet, came back. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. And in a really deep Scottish accent, he got back to me and he was like, I'm not going to do the Scottish accent, by the way, because I won't do it justice. But he was like, oh, no. He was like, oh, no worries. We've got way better watt bikes at work. And I kind of thought to myself, these are an expensive piece of equipment. I was like, where do you work? And it turns out that he was the head coach of Yorkshire Carnegie at the time. His name was Brian Redpath. A really genuinely lovely guy. He used to captain Scotland in rugby, and I'm pretty sure he played for the Lions as well. So he was a big deal in the world of
Wow.
sport. So
And
he was,
that's how you got into the professional realm, Paul.
yeah, well, that's how I got an interview. Anyways, got an interview then to do. I asked him like, "Are you a physiologist or an S&C coach?" And he said there was interviews going on. He went to the locker room, got his card, gave it to me, and then yeah, the rest is history. I got
This is his
into working. So yeah, definitely put
unbelievable.
yourself in the position to have good opportunities, and when they pop up, jump at them, go for them.
Oh man, amen to that. Amen to that. And I'm a big believer, everything does happen for a reason. And these small little things like that, sure, it may have been, some element of luck there, but I love the saying that luck is a peculiar habit of following those who do not rely on it, Paul. So
I
you were
love
in
it.
the right environment at the right time, and as a result, you got that opportunity. And from this, then, Paul, you worked with professional teams, you have a lot of experience in the industry, and you're an online fitness coach and personal trainer too. A
Yep.
common challenge that we hear a lot of people have, and I'm sure I can share stories, and I'm sure you can too, is low back pain, whether that's sitting too long at a desk all day, maybe technique is slightly off in the gym, it is probably the most common injury out there. What are some, first of all, common misconceptions, Paul, that people have around low back pain?
I think most people tend to think it comes from a weak core. It can definitely be something that can help facilitate back pain, but realistically, most people who have lower back pain, it's from most likely three things: tight hips, tight hamstrings, and weak glutes. Um, 90% of back pain, and now that's not off a study, that's off my own opinion and from people that I've worked with, and I've worked with people in all over the world, England, Ireland, Canada, and most of them have been fixed or improved greatly through lengthening their hip flexors, lengthening their hamstrings, and strengthening their glutes. Just because of that position it puts it in. So when you're sat at a desk all day and you're working, you will find that your knees are closer to your chest, so your hips are tightened up. Your heels are closer to your bum than if you were standing, so your hamstrings are tightened as well. And then your hips are obviously flexed, so your glutes are relaxed. That
Mm,
position then will push that hip girdle into that anterior pelvic tilt that everyone hears about. It's like, oh God. So that can lead to a lot of lower back pain. That extension, like one of the two, I suppose, are the most common ones. One being facet joint irritation, which can occur with that overextension, basically.
for
Um,
sure.
and then I think the other most common one is um, like a disc pain. Now, most people over the age of 40 will probably have had some form of disc problem, but not all of them will be symptomatic. A lot of people will be asymptomatic in that they don't actually realize they have some form of a disc herniation, etc. Um, and the way that happens is most people will have either rotated, usually it's through rotation and flexion. So to put that into perspective, you don't have, it doesn't have to be a massive item in order for it to happen. I worked with a rugby player that benched 180. That's what he could, well, 180 kgs. So for anyone from America, you can do
Wow.
the maths into pounds. And
Yeah.
he got a disc herniation through picking up a bag of compost because he flexed and rotated. I mean, he was a forward. He'd probably been through a lot of scrums in that day, and he was maybe fatigued. There were a lot of other factors, but it's very easy to get it, but they're not always symptomatic. So
Sure.
usually what tends to happen is people will find it because they'll get that shooting pain from their glute down towards their calf or their ankle, the sciatic pain. And again, then you just have to try and strengthen the glutes, try and help lengthen the hamstring and release the piriformis.
So on that topic then, Paul, what are some good exercises to strengthen your glutes, to lengthen your hamstrings, and to stretch out your hips as well?
So one of my all-time favorite exercises, and I've actually listened to one of your podcasts where you guys were complaining about them, and I was like, "What are you guys saying? They're brilliant," but everyone does hate them. Bulgarian split squats, love them. So you can change the way they're focused, whether you drive through your toe or your heel, you'll automatically change where the torque is mainly driven through. So if you're doing a regular Bulgarian split squat, you'll see most people will drive weight through their midfoot and toe, and their foot will be quite close to the bench. If you bring that foot further out, you drive through the heel and you stay a little bit taller, you're going to push that torque towards the glute. By staying taller, you're going to look after the knee.
Sure. Yeah.
You'll hit the quad still, so you can hinge over. But if you're someone with say like a disc herniation, you're not going to want to get into that flexion. So by staying taller, you're going to help alleviate that. Now I wouldn't say if you get a disc herniation, don't go straight into Bulgarians. I'm just saying this is one of
It's
my favorite
yeah.
exercises for the strengthening your glutes,
So
but also
Bulgarian split squats with the foot extended further out from the bench, keeping your posture upright, so you're
exactly.
activating the glute more rather than the knee over toe approach.
Yeah, so you'll activate the glute slightly less by staying taller, but you won't aggravate the lower back.
Sure.
And
Gotcha.
by the biggest thing with it is that you just don't let the you don't drop into that flexion, it won't hurt. But the thing is, because the back foot is up on the bench, you're also going to help open up the hip flexors and the rec fem there, which can help, alleviate some of that lower back pain. So you're strengthening your glutes, you're looking after your lower back because you're tall, but then you're also opening up the hip flexor all in one movement.
All
So
simultaneously.
love that
Yes.
movement. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's a brilliant movement. It's probably one of my favorites that I use with the majority of clients that I have.
And
The
what
other
about
thing,
one or yeah?
sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to ask, what are one or two other exercises that you would recommend to strengthen the glutes and obviously free out your hamstrings and your hips?
So I suppose a really straightforward, easy one would be something like a bird dog. Done properly, it's going to help strengthen the glutes and the hamstrings. And then if you're looking at lengthening the hamstrings, anything slowly with the slow eccentric, it's going to help strengthen and lengthen the muscle. So something like a glute bridge with a slider. So like just you could start with
Yes.
both feet on the floor and use one leg just slowly extending. If that's
Mhm.
too, just simply lying on your back, band around the ball of the foot, pulling it up to stretch the hamstring, and just pointing the toe away and pulling it back, doing a bit of neural flossing. You'll find that'll help alleviate some of that tightness in the hamstring.
Awesome. Awesome. Paul, I remember when I got low back pain. One thing that I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, which I don't necessarily agree with, is you just got to rest, give it a week, give it 2 weeks without doing anything, even though you're an athlete wanting to sprint or you're a gym meathead wanting to deadlift, wanting to lift weights. And I hurt my back doing a deadlift last year. And honestly, the following morning after, I remember the pain it was excruciating and I could barely bend over getting up out of bed. But later on that day, I had built up to a 120 kilo deadlift, which wasn't my one rep max, but I chose to do something about it. And then the following day, much, much better, just because of that exercise and that movement that I implemented. What are your thoughts on the common prescription that rest for a couple of days, couple of weeks, and just see how you're going?
Yeah, I think it's a very case by case basis with it and dependent because it's such an open wide, back pain takes in so many different things. But I definitely think there should be some form of movement. So I don't, if your back pain is that severe, I mean, you can still get in, lie down on a gym floor, and you can do small bits of movement to help alleviate the back pain, whether it's something as simple as just stretching your hamstring, doing a few glute bridges, even if it's like a little bear hold, you're still going to help build up your body while looking after your back. Funny enough, if it's a disc problem, usually within 3 months, the disc will dehydrate and it'll go back into position itself naturally by itself. That's why most people, if they're asymptomatic, they'll find like, oh, my back's actually okay. Like, I don't need to go to the
Sure.
doctor's 3 months of that, sharp shooting pain while going into flexion.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So with the low back pain, point taken there, strengthen the glutes, lengthen out the hip flexors, lengthen out the hamstrings. What about Paul for desk workers? Leaned over or just generally the way we are on our phones with those rounded shoulders with a tight neck or tight back. Are there any tips that you would give to help improve your posture if that is even possible?
Yeah, 100%. So I made the transfer over to an online personal trainer there about, oh God, not that long ago, to be fair. I always did a little bit with my athletes, but to be mainly online now, it's probably been about 6 to 8 months. And even I find like I'm sat at the desk way more. Sometimes I'll get that pain in my upper back. Um, I suppose the biggest thing with it is if you think when you're holding a phone or you're on a desk, your arms are in tight towards you, you're slightly hunched over, so you're automatically, you're contracting your chest, you're tight through your chest. Um, so the easiest way to help alleviate some back pain, not upper back pain, not all, is to help open the chest, so lengthen the chest and strengthen the upper back. So you've got
Yeah.
um, agonist and antagonistic muscles working together and against each other. So by strengthening the back, you tighten it up. So it's going to help pull on the front a little bit more, and by loosening the chest, you're going to help again open up that chest a little bit more. The shoulders should sit back a little bit better. I also think that people should definitely work into their traps a lot from holding things, having their arms hiked up when they're working at a desk, and something as simple as setting a timer. So whether it's like you do 20 minutes of work and you get up and you walk around for 5 minutes,
Absolutely.
I always tell everyone I work with that works from home, I'm like the simplest exercise to help alleviate some upper back or neck pain. And it doesn't work for everyone, but it works for the majority of people. It's just some reverse shoulder rolls.
Yeah.
Literally as simple as draw the biggest circles you can with your shoulders up towards your ears down, out the back, down as far as they go, and up to the front. Make sure they're in reverse. And you'd be surprised if you did that every 20 minutes, the relief you'd get just from being on a phone all day.
Absolutely. I'm also a big fan, Paul, of just hanging from a bar before every upper body workout. I'll just hang loose from a bar. Trains your core, trains your grip strength, but also just really helps to decompress your shoulders and put your posture in a much, much better position.
But yeah, 100, I love a bit of decompression. I'm actually in a gym at the moment where they have the traction chairs or tables, so you can hook your feet in and you swing back, and then you just get to
Oh
extend
yeah, I'm aware. Yeah.
it. So
Awesome.
I'll take my phone. I'll take my phone before a client. I'll walk in, I'll hook my feet in, and I'll usually just lie back and I'll take a few minutes to myself where I'm just like, oh, alleviate that. All I'll say is when you're doing something like that, definitely make sure you, if you're a first timer to it, make sure you will allow yourself to drop down gently onto the floor afterwards because you can get some sharp shooting pain after that
Yes.
traction. I'm sure you've had
It's
it.
a, it's also you're going to get double bang for your buck there because anyone who's ever been out in Air Square in Galway, even nationwide, there's always those people at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night in a busy street, and they have the bar hang challenge. I'm not sure if you've ever
Yeah,
seen it, but with the
I have.
now the thing is though the bar is rotating. It's not rotating in the gym, so I've tried it out before, and they give you €100 if you can hold it for 100 seconds. But just the rotating bar does catch you, but
Uh,
it's a good way at least to get some reps and practice in, Paul.
yeah, no, I can't. I've seen that. I can't even imagine. My toxic trait is thinking, oh, I do that easily. And it's like, no,
Yeah, yeah, we're
definitely
all a
not.
bit braver with a bit of alcohol. Tell me this then, Paul. There's a lot of people who demonize foam rolling. There's a lot of people who preach by it. What are your thoughts? Is foam rolling is it beneficial? Can it be beneficial?
I think like there are certain therapies that I don't particularly agree with, but I think there are different strokes for different folks. In
Absolutely,
that
I love it.
even if it's a placebo and you think your client shouldn't do it or you shouldn't do it, but you find benefit from it,
Yeah.
who am I, who's anybody else to tell you to stop doing it? I think obviously there are people that prey on some people that are vulnerable, and the amount they may charge for something, that can be talked about. But if it's something simple, whether it's cupping or dry needling, and you get massive relief off it, even though the research isn't massively backed by it, then by all means go for it. Like I've read the research, I get it, and I still like dry needling. I love it. Foam rolling, I think it is brilliant. I love it. I have a lacrosse ball, €8 on
Yes.
Amazon. It is my best friend. I
Or
would
just a
love it.
Schlitter, even a Schlitter you could
Yeah, even a
compromise.
slit,
Yeah.
yeah, 110%. I think it's great, especially if you're getting some of those sciatic pains down your leg, working into your piriformis. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they always start on the floor with the foam roller. And for most people in the population, trying to do a push-up or hold themselves in a plank, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So what I would suggest is, look, if you're rolling your quads, you're probably going to need to be on the floor in that plank position with the foot kicked out the side. But if you're rolling your glutes or your hamstrings or your back, you don't have to be on the floor. Take a lacrosse ball, find a wall, maybe not a white wall because you leave some marks in it.
Yeah.
Uh, do on the wall outside and roll into it there. Start on the start
Lean
like,
in.
and I think the biggest problem that people have with rolling is they think they're rolling out dough. You want to try and find that point where it's, oh, yeah, I feel that that's a little bit tender. And then you want to try and relax the muscle because I can guarantee you're going to tighten up to try and protect it. Try breathe, relax into it, and it's going to cause a bit of relief. If foam rolling does anything, so like let's say people are like, oh, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. One thing it will definitely do it will increase blood flow to the area.
Yeah.
And that's what you need in order to help with recovery and repair. I personally love foam rolling. I think it's great. I think everyone should do it. Um, so if you haven't got a foam roller yet, definitely get a foam roller and a lacrosse ball. €8 on Amazon. And I'm not trying to get a sponsorship here for anything, but I'm telling you that it'll change your life in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for sure. I do agree. Like, look, the argument is that when you foam roll, it only lasts for a certain window of time. But if you're doing that before your workout, and as a result, maybe prior to foam rolling, you test out your squat, and you're not able to squat to parallel, then you might foam roll your hip, or you might loosen out your hip flexors. You might do some work for your glutes, as you were saying, your quads. And all of a sudden now you're able to move with a bit more range of motion, and then you add some weight to it and you're adding more range of motion. You might have to do that again the next session, but at least for that session itself, you've now improved, and you've improved your technique, you've improved your range of motion, and you've also built strength, because people often think that the only way to add strength is just to add weight to the bar. But if you just think about it, if you're squatting and you're only able to do a quarter squat, but then you transition from a quarter to a full squat, you're going double the distance down and double the distance on the way up. So that's another form of strength, even just improving your technique and range of motion.
Couldn't agree more. Like it's like people who take creatine. Creatine, after a while, the loading effect goes away, but that's not going to stop you from not taking it. You're going to take it to help give you that extra bit of energy to get those extra few reps. One thing I will say for anyone as well, if you are rolling your hamstrings, like most people struggle. I don't know if you struggle with rolling your hamstrings, if you found like it's tough sometimes on a foam roller to get that.
I don't get a bang off it, so I typically just use a slither at the insertion point of my hip, the top of my hip, and I find that works best for me personally.
100% agreed. Yeah, if you can find a hard wooden chair or something, pop a little ball underneath, you're going to get way more bang for your buck. Just for anyone out there listening. But yeah,
Yeah,
no, I totally agree with the if it can make small changes to your workout each day. I mean, those small changes all add up.
absolutely. And like, look, the big takeaway as well being, I used to be the guy that I was obsessed with mobility work, and it was like, Jesus, it's 30 minutes before I even start my freaking gym workout because I'm rolling out every single body part. But obviously, it's great when you're 21 and you've got loads of time. But most people listen to this, they're busy working professionals. You don't need to spend all day at it. Like a good 5 minutes there, a nice little routine on your quads, on your adductors, getting your glutes rolled out, whatever body part you're training, focusing more on that, you can get a lot done inside 5 minutes. So absolutely, it is a worthwhile investment, Paul. What about then strength training, Paul? So one thing I really enjoy about your content is there's not just an emphasis on looking fit, but actually being fit as well. And look, I'm not the biggest fan of the word functional fitness. I think it kind of took off there a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
Now it's been demonized, but there is a lot to be said for not just being the guy who's able to deadlift 200, but then, you're out of breath going up a flight of stairs. It's not necessarily a form of health and fitness. What are some practical ways that for anyone listening who want to look fit, but also be fit?
yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's just marrying your compound lifts and then looking at your accessories and how you can bring in that functionality into it. So with a lot of people, they'll bench and then they'll bench and then they'll bench again. Like they'll do a lot of pushing movements with it, which is great for bodybuilding. But if you're a cement block, going down to tie your laces, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So by adding in different variations, by bringing in greater ranges of motion, you're going to be a little bit more functional. So something as like you'll find a lot of people who bench a lot, they'll get shoulder pain. In order to
Yeah,
keep functional and to look after your shoulders, switch up the bench press for a floor press. It's going to take out the range of motion and it's
awesome.
take out the pressure on the shoulders. Um, like even for anyone out there that's listening and they're into sport, like the gym is not not everything when it comes to athletic performance. When I worked in London, there was one of the athletes I worked with, and he was as an athlete, he was amazing. Like he was about 16, almost 17. He could squat. I think it was something crazy like 180 kg for two, and bench 140 for two. And this is kg. And chin up. He do two chin ups strict. Was it 47.5? Um,
Oh,
lightning fast, and it was rugby, and he got let go because he wasn't a great rugby player. So you can be very strong, you can be very fast, but if you're not functional in the terms of like functional specific to what you're looking at. So functional for me is very different to functional for you. Functional in that setting was that he could play rugby, but his hands and his skills weren't there, so he was let go. Strength work and things in the gym are just trying to help improve you so that you can stay more consistent with everything you do. So like within professional sport, I'll go back there again because that's where my experience lies. People always think like, oh, the biggest lifters, the strongest guys, they're going to be the ones that are brilliant. the gym is just there to keep you more robust so that you can deal with the kind of hits or the kind of
Yes,
stresses and
for
pressure
sure.
that sports puts you under. It's there to keep you more consistent. It is just a cog in the wheel. Like it is not the be all and end all.
So, our common listener, Paul, if we're just to apply to the average worker, functional for a lot of our listeners here would be being able to maybe go for a 5 or 10K run, or if they've kids, being able to run around with the children where you're moving left, you're moving right without pulling a hamstring or tweaking the groin.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you could train functionally in the gym to be able to perform those kind of exercise outside the gym?
So I think the biggest thing, if you're starting off running, we'll take running because you said that. Work from the foundation up. So if you haven't got great balance, it's going to be hard to create force in the way that you want. So work on your balance. So single leg exercises, I'll bring it back to my favorite, the Bulgarian. But like a Bulgarian split squat, a single leg squat, that's going to help one, look at any asymmetry. So if you've got any problem on either leg, it's going to help even that up. But it's also going to help you improve your balance, improve all the little intrinsic muscles in and around the ankle, the knee, the hip to try and make you stronger. If you're stronger, you're going to be able to run further. I think the second thing is with functional fitness, it's not all about the heaviest weight you can move or shift. Think about slowing things down. So slow it down. You're going to work more on the eccentric range. That is going to create more damage, which will create more growth. But on top of that, it'll also create more length. So you'll be lengthening and strengthening. So something like a slow eccentric RDL, yes, you're going to build some great glutes and hamstrings, but you're also going to increase the length of the hamstring as well. So the next
Sure.
time you drop down to tie those laces, it's going to be a hell of a lot easier.
Unreal. Unreal. Awesome. And one thing that I will mention about quote unquote functional fitness is I made the mistake in the past of just moving in one plane of motion. And when you think of most gym exercises out there, your bench, your squat, your deadlift, you're all just working in that one plane. But I think there's a lot of benefit of moving to the side. So let's just say doing something like a side lunge or a Cossack squat or adding some rotation. So you might do a pad off press with a bit of rotation there or some kind of core rotation. Even, a very, very basic one might be a Russian twist. I found that I'm just not as stuck in the mud, let's just put it like that, when I train in multiple planes rather than just doing your standard bodybuilding machine work and moving all in that one plane.
Couldn't agree more. Again, like I love a bit of rotational. I always think there should be some anti-rotation and rotational exercises in any program, particularly with the core. And because these are exercises you should put near the end of a program, you can get, you can get a few more things in it. So looking at something like a half kneel position with a banded rotation, you're going to work on the rotation for your core, but you're also again going to open that hip flexor. If you're not just satisfied with that, you want to work on your balance as well as opening up your hip flexors, strengthen your glutes and your quads, bring that half kneel to a split stance and do the exact same movement.
Yes,
Struggling with balance, just drop into a quarter squat and do the exact same thing again. The only problem there is you're taking away then from the hip flexor. So there's so
sure.
many ways to skin a cat, for one of a better word.
Absolutely. Paul, hadn't planned to do this, but off the top of our head, if we were both of us to put together 10 exercises, top 10 exercises
I heard
that
this in one of them and I was like,
oh
I hope he doesn't
yeah.
ask me that.
Let's do it. So for someone who they want to have that functional fitness, but look, let's be real, we also want a bit of aesthetics too. We want to look good, we want to feel good, perform good. What would you say are some good bang for your buck exercises that would incorporate all of these things?
So definitely all the compounds. Like doesn't matter if you're in professional sport, if you're just a weekend warrior, whatever it is, the big stones are the big stones for a reason. So
Okay, so let's name
bench,
them.
so your bench press, your barbell bench press, your deadlift, whether that's with a hex bar, with a dumbbell, or with the barbell, your chin up or pull up, and your I'm trying to think what else I've got. So I've got the pull, I've got the chin up, I've got the
Barbell back squat? Yes or
barbell.
no?
I've got the king of lifts, the barbell back squat. Thank you very much. Yeah, and the barbell back squat. Then I would just break that down into some. single like accessory movements like a
Bulgarian split squat.
Bulgarian split
It's
squats.
gotta be
Love
in
them.
there, man.
I love staggered stances for different exercises. So like a staggered squat. So it's like it's not quite a single leg squat. It's not quite a lunge. It's a little bit tighter. You can hold a lot of
Yeah.
weight through it. It's going to work on your balance, but it's still going to help you with your balance because the toe is up at the back. If you haven't seen any staggered movements in a squat or an RDL, take a look at my page or someone else's. Like they're a great exercise, especially if you're at home. You're looking for, you know, you're at that stage where you're like, all I've got is a 30 kg at home and I want to lift more, but I can't, afford to get another dumbbell, change it up to a staggered squat. Trust me, it's gonna be tough. So I think staggered exercises. So can we put them in as an extra too?
Yeah. Okay. So we've got the squat, the bench, the deadlift, chin ups, Bulgarian split squats, and just a staggered stance.
Yeah, so single arm row, we'll say a staggered stance
Yeah.
RDL because we've got the Bulgarian in.
Now
We
we
then
gotta go something lateral. What about a Cossack squat?
Yeah, I do like I do you know what? I would probably go to some form of plyometrics, some form of jump and some form of power
Yeah.
because people don't bring that in that much. And as you get older, like you'll see people slow
You
down and everything
decrease
like
that.
that
Yes, for
a
sure.
100%. So something like a skater squat or a Haydn, I would put that in there. Um, we've got to have some form of core exercise. Now, I don't know exactly the name of this, but if anyone goes on my page, you'll see it. I call it an adductor squeeze to heel lower. It's basically where you lie flat on your back. I think it's big in Pilates. There's a ball between your knee. You squeeze the ball as tight as you can. Your feet are up at 90 and you lower your heels slowly towards the
Oh, I'm
ground.
aware. Yeah.
Yeah. And you keep the
It's
lower back flat throughout.
it's almost like doing a crunch with a med ball between your legs, keeping the ball squeezed and keeping your back jammed into the floor. Would that be
That's
right?
it. But you don't come up with your
Yes.
upper back.
Yeah.
Probably one
Gotcha.
of my favorite core exercises ever. Love it.
Funny enough, I did a variation of those today, except I did it with a plate instead of a med ball. But actually, next time I must try it out with a med ball, man.
Well, see, I like the med ball because in that one movement, you're working your core, obviously. You're working your adductors because you're going to squeeze that med ball as hard as you can. And then you're working your hip flexors. And the heavier that ball is, or the further you bring your feet out, the more stress you're going to
Yeah,
put on the core and the hip flexors themselves.
deadly, deadly,
And
awesome
then we'll
stuff.
have to stick in some form of rotational. I would probably say a half kneel banded rotation or cable rotation. So you're going to open up the hip flexor and again add in a little bit of rotation with the core.
I like it.
Ask me
Yeah,
this in 3 weeks, I'll have changed my mind completely because I always
yeah,
think you have to keep learning. And if your programs look the same from day one to day 300, you're probably, not doing enough learning.
yeah, for sure. And oh, even Paul on console calls, I asked some people how long have they been doing it this way, how long they've been training this way. And God, I have to admire some people. Like some people, they've been following the same program that they got off a coach since the pandemic without really any variation. Might change an exercise here and there, but for me, look, you obviously do need an element of consistency in the gym, but everything works, nothing works forever. I do feel there's a lot of benefit immersed to adding some form of
Couldn't
variability to
agree
your
more.
workouts. Maybe look, for some people it might be 4 weeks, some it could be 6, 8, 12 weeks, but at some stage, anyways, you can't just expect the same program to get you the results that you would desire. Paul, we're
Totally
going
agree with
to
that.
pivot slightly because for anyone who doesn't know, Paul and I, we met recently at an event in Dublin, and we share a lot in common. Obviously, our love for fitness, our love for strength, our love for more quote unquote functional fitness. But Paul, you also, I guess, like everyone, you've underwent some personal challenges too, maybe with mindset. Would you mind just sharing a bit about some of your own current struggles about just
Yeah.
mindset and, falling into, as you said, a period of life where you went through a state of depression?
Yeah. So obviously like my job was, I worked in professional sport. I worked with like, basketballers, stunt performers, all this, like my whole life from a kid up till I was an adult was based around athleticism and being athletic because you want to show your clients um a good example, I suppose. So Yeah, I had a pretty severe back injury. It actually happened originally when I was working down in London, and that was saw to pretty quickly. Thankfully, I was okay. But I had the worst flare up when I was working in Canada. I'd just done a really long journey. I'd gone over to the island. Beautiful. If anyone ever gets to go out to Vancouver, Vancouver Island, definitely check it out. And I came back and I was working in the center, and at the time I was working with stunt performers. So I'd done my own program of like heavy deadlifts, which was great, but I forgot to think about programming within demonstrations that I'd be doing also. So you'd never do really heavy lifts and then a short period afterwards start doing something explosive, which of course I did. So I had these group of stunt performers in, and I was just taking them through pretty aggressive jumps, plyometrics, and just felt my back go. And I instantly knew, I was like, oh, this is my disc again, herniation in my disc. And it just got progressively worse. It got to a stage where it was so bad that I couldn't sit down in the mornings to have my breakfast. I'd have to be helped to the floor, like rotated across
Wow.
into my back so I could sit and eat breakfast. I lost loads of weight. I lost like near 20 kg of weight just because the lack of immobility. And then, yeah, I was just on every single drug known to man from then. They put me on. I started off trying to get myself sorted out. Over there in Canada, CBD is it's a legal substance there. So just a little bit of CBD, try and help with my back pain. It was all right for a little while, didn't work. Went and saw doctors, got prescribed, to get an MRI. That was going to take however long. So it turns out I had a disc herniation. It had relapsed, and then they put me on a mix of local anesthetic injections into the muscle. I had a corticosteroid injection into my spine. I had muscle relaxants. I had neural blockers, and the big one was opioids. So I had like 2 rounds of opioids. Um,
And in what way did that affect your mental state, Paul?
Oh, completely. So I was still trying to work at the time, and when I look back, I genuinely don't know how I did it. Because I remember like I was a half an hour drive from my work when I was working in Vancouver, and I remember driving to work, and I got there, and I spoke to my line manager at the time, and I just was like, "Whoa, I don't actually remember pulling up in this car. I don't remember sitting in the car. I don't remember driving here. I was just I was just there." And I had my two managers were having a good chat, and honestly, it felt like I was floating up in the air, looking down at myself. Um, and yeah, it was really, really depressing. Like I got really like it was at a stage where sometimes I would be upset, and like I would actually like I would be crying going to bed because I knew that when I got up in the morning, the lack of mobility was going to be back there.
Yeah.
Going to be really tough and hard again. But yeah, thankfully, after that experience with the car, the first thing I did when I got home is I literally took every single pill that I had and I binned it because I was like, I actually physically, mentally I can't sustain it. And I'm a danger to people if I jump in a car. Like, that's not okay. So it took a little while to get things back to normal. The corticosteroid injection definitely helped a lot. I actually shortly moved back to Ireland afterwards. First thing I did was I bought €700 of rogue weights. I remember at the time thinking, "Oh my God, that's a great deal." Turns out they're only a single weight of each one. So I had like 1.5 up to 135. But for 2 months, I literally got up every day, didn't pick up work here for the first 2 months, didn't do anything. I just got out every morning, whether it was raining, whether it was sun, I was outside and I just did my little few exercises. Started off just being on all fours, doing little bits like just hip tucks, small bits of movements to eventually building back up to deadlifting. And now I'm at a stage again where I can run, I can play soccer. I mean, I can deadlift, I can squat,
Yeah.
no pain. Like, so yeah, like when you come from a stage at being, your late 20s to you're not able to tie your laces and you're upset because you're going to go to sleep and things aren't going to go well. I think you have to take a look at what you can do to help yourself. Like for me, I had a massive uh, emotional growth. Like I started, practicing gratitude. I started practicing like, I get up in the morning, I'd be like, what am I thankful for? Even though I couldn't get out of bed, it took me ages just to roll and pull myself out of bed, but I'd still be like, what am I thankful for? I'm like, God, like I'm not working as as much as I used to, but I'm thankful that, I've got a salary. I'm thankful that I can, have someone to help me come out of the bed and work into my back. Like, yeah, I think you just have to take a step back. There's always going to be someone worse. There will always be someone better, but you have to take a look and think, what can I do in my power to help improve myself? And if there are things that are taken away from you, I think I heard in one of your other podcasts, I think it might have been you that said like energy vampires, and I really like that phrase. And I think if
Yeah.
there are energy vampires in your life, whether it's a thing or a person, you need to really consider like if it's a consistent thing, you need to remove them and start to figure out how you can get to full health. Because if you're not at full health, how are you meant to help other people?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. You touched on such an important point there with gratitude. I'm not sure if you're aware of the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's someone
I've
I've been listening to
aimed,
a lot lately.
yeah,
And he always says you cannot be simultaneously grateful and in a negative state at the same time. And
yeah,
what you did there, what you touched on there, was obviously something very powerful because by actively seeking and looking for things to be grateful, you're putting yourself in a mentally in a much more positive state. And I do think there's so much power in starting the day. Something I started doing, and for anyone listening there, I did think that journaling and meditation and visualization, it's all woo-woo. It's not for everyone, and
yeah,
everyone has their own form of it. But for me, every morning, I do like to close my eyes and just think, how can I become the best version of myself today? Who do I need to show up for? How am I going to perform? What am I going to do? And here's the real interesting thing on this. Your mind doesn't know the difference between an experience you visualize in your head and something that actually happens in reality.
yeah,
So if you can visualize a negative outcome, is it possible that you can visualize a positive outcome too? Because so many of our thoughts are repetitive. They're the exact same as they were the day before, the day before. And we're always starting our day off with what do I have to do next? What's on my to-do list? Stressing from work, you're checking your phone. You're in a reactive instead of proactive state. But I think there's a lot of power in this. Just literally taking 5 minutes every morning, close your eyes. Who do you want to become? How do you need to act? How do you need to show up? And practice being that person, embracing that identity every single day.
yeah.
And
I couldn't agree.
it's something I found just to be powerful on that front, along with gratitude, visualization, and starting your day off proactively rather than reactively checking your phone.
I completely agree. I think sometimes we are our own worst critic, and if you can help silence yourself or change the narrative that you're being more of a positive influence towards yourself, you will make greater changes because like we're both in the business of online personal training, and I can guarantee that you had the same feeling as me when you first went into a gym and you recorded. Everyone's watching me, everyone's looking at me. What'll I do? And of course, you'll get one or two that might say something, but at the end of the day, like it's water off a duck's back, and the majority of people will love it, and people will reach out and thank you for the things that you've done. So if you've got something positive that you can help people with, start off by saying something positive to yourself. Use that as the fuel to go and do whatever you love, chase it down and work from there.
Oh man, amen to that. Amen. And I still feel that way to this day. Like a lot of the times, even at the weekend there, Chris Williamson, oh, he said such a fantastic quote that really, really resonated with me. He said, we care so much about other people's opinion of what they think about us. Yet the majority of people, they don't even like themselves.
Yeah,
They don't even like themselves. So why are you concerning yourself about the opinion of other people who they don't like you, but they don't even have that self-respect for themselves? And it kind of reframed my thought. And another thing I've heard a lot of people saying, I agree with this. Look, don't take advice off someone you wouldn't trade places with. Some people might have good
that's a good one.
intentions, but if if they're not in a better position than you, maybe just take what they said with a pinch of salt and move
Yeah, you can't beat a good quote, can you? Like this, like
on.
there's you just
There's so
can't. There's
many of
something
them.
about it. Yeah,
There's so
we should
many.
have just done the whole podcast on quotes because I've got a few more in the tank. But
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And just before we wrap it up, so mindset is obviously a big, big part of all of this, Paul. Like look, most people there, listen, we are aware that having a piece of fruit is probably better than having a donut. Just like going to the gym is probably better in most situations than not going.
Yep.
But yet, so many people in our society, they are not happy with their body. They lack body confidence. They're not happy with their weight. They're overweight. Their eating habits, they just aren't there. What are some ways, Paul, that you have found, particularly from a mindset perspective, what are some things that stop people and how, what are some ways that we could overcome those challenges?
Yeah, so this one I get quite I understand this quite a bit because I was a swimmer growing up, but and I was in good shape. Like I, swam at nationals, all that. Like I was in good nick, but at the same time, like I always went with a rash vest down. Like I live by the sea. I'm like literally a 2 minute walk from the sea. I'd always go with the rash vest on because like everyone, everybody goes through different stages of wishing they had something a bit more. Once you get to a certain area, you're going to want more. It's just the way we are wired as human beings. So I think you just need to take a step back, tell yourself a few things that you're happy with or you're proud of yourself for doing, and think back to you 3 months ago. And if you're in a better position, great. And if you're not, think about the things that you can control. So if you're a person right now that's thinking, I've put on the pounds and, I'm not happy with where I am right now. Think about 3 months ago where you were. If you're in the same
Yeah.
position or worse, what could you have controlled in order to have changed that, whether it's, dietary or not? But you could have just had a hard week. Someone close to you could have passed away. Something tough could have happened in your life. And I think you just have to realize that you are your own worst critic and you just need to be kind to yourself. Start off with small things. If you're someone who likes to go for a swim and it's a crowded area, you're not comfortable there, go with the friend to somewhere that's a small bit quieter and work your way into it. But just start by controlling the things that you can control,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and realize that your body image will eventually fail. It's not possible to not stop it from failing. You're not going to look like a 25-year-old in your 50s. It just doesn't happen. You
Yeah.
can slow that down, but that's all to the choices that you've made. And if you asked me, and I know that you've got like I've never done a bodybuilding show. I know you have, but I can guarantee that most people, when they're at their most shredded, oh, you are tired, you're feeling a
You
bit
wouldn't
like
want it.
sick because you're hungry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like it's tough.
You don't want to. When I was at peak week for the show, I was the last person you'd want to trade places with if you realize how I felt internally, because it's so
Yeah,
weird. Like physically, you look your best, but mentally, you feel your worst.
yeah.
And for anyone out there, if you attach all of your self worth, or you tell yourself, I'll be happy when I reach a certain weight, a certain body fat percentage, but you're miserable along the journey, it's a surefire way to feel the exact same way once you get there. If you hate the process and you think that just getting to a weight, you'll be happy then, that time will never come. It's like, I'll be happy when I earn a certain amount, and then you feel the exact same way when you earn that amount. It's the same with your weight, with your looks. Which is why there's a lot to be said for enjoying the process, Paul.
I
Just
couldn't
before
agree
we
more.
just
Sorry, I was just
before
gonna say
we
on that one. Sorry, going over to you.
no, go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say like people see them as goals, but they're checkpoints. Because like you said with
I
the money,
love it.
realistically, when you get to earning X amount, then you'll start spending more on X amount because you're like, I always wanted that, and that's something that makes me happy. But eventually, then, you'll have to earn more in order to get the next one. Things in life are checkpoints. It doesn't mean you can't go back to the previous one, but you'll always want to push further. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but just appreciate the checkpoints when you make them.
Yeah, I love that point, the checkpoints. I think there's a study actually on this with regards to income, and that once your income level surpasses something like 75 grand a year, the amount of joy and satisfaction you get from that wage increasing dramatically decreases once you kind of reach that threshold. So that's where probably the most common regret that people have in their deathbed is lack of human connection and just not having enough fun. Like, I wish I didn't work as hard. I wish I had a bit more fun. I wish I made a bit more time for friends. So there's a lot to be said for obviously just working on your mindset, understanding that your physique, how you look, the amount of money you earn, it might be part of who you are, but it's not all of who you are. And there's a lot
100%.
more to your identity. Paul, this has been amazing. I just want to wrap this up with a rapid fire. A rapid fire now,
All right, let's go for
five
it.
question Q&A.
Don't know how rapid I'll
And
be with answers,
yeah, so
but
we'll try to be as concise as possible because I know you and I, we could speak all day. When you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind?
Ooh, my parents. My parents. They've
Awesome.
got, four healthy kids that are fairly happy. They're both content in what they do. Um, they've got a good marriage. They've got a good life. Yeah, I would say my parents.
Brilliant. One new habit you've implemented in the last 6 months.
Caring less. Caring less, 100%. I can delve more into that if you want, or we'll keep going.
Caring less. We'll leave it be for now. We'll park
Okay,
that for now. I
perfect.
like that idea. Not caring as much. Awesome. What if you could go back in time to when you started? What's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self, Paul?
Have more faith in yourself and again, care less what other people think. Like if you've got
Yeah,
an idea in your head, go for it because it's easier to forgive yourself for making a mistake rather than making somebody else's mistake.
I love it. What's the most underrated gym exercise you feel most people should do more of?
Oh God, that's a tough one. I
Do I
knew
know your
one was
answer
gonna.
to this?
You one, do you? Oh, I knew one. Oh, the Bulgarian split squat. Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
your answer?
Do you know what? I actually would probably say, yeah, it's a single leg
Yeah,
exercise. It's going to help build and lengthen. Yeah, yeah, Bulgarian split squat. We'll go with it. It's a
awesome.
theme.
Amazing, man. Oh, I tell you, I'm still barely able to walk from doing them 2 or 3 days ago. There's a lot to be said. They're unreal. They are unreal. Awesome. Finally, Paul, what do the first 60 to 90 minutes of your typical day look like?
Uh, First 60 to 90 minutes, getting up, seeing my dog, having some breakfast. I will definitely check my phone. I'm a terror for my phone. I definitely need to get away from a bit, check my phone, get back to some clients, bring my dog out, either for a small walk or just a little bit of play in the garden. And then I will sit down, look over my to-do list, check off my to-do list, have another cup of coffee, and then get going with my day.
And then get going with your day. Awesome. Paul, for anyone listening here who wants to learn a bit more about you, about what you offer, where's the best place to send them?
Instagram's definitely the best place to check me out. My handle is at summit underscore P and H. So at summit underscore P and H.
I'll post a link to that in the show notes. Awesome stuff. Paul, final question, because this is the Lifestyle Lifter show. What is your definition of living a successful lifestyle?
I think one where you can get up in the morning, you can feel content. I don't think you need to get up every morning and feel like super happy because I think
Yeah,
happy is such a strong word that people feel like they need to be, oh, I'm really happy with the day. Like everything's great. Like you can wake up some days and the day mightn't be that exciting or that bad. But if you can get up and you're content and you look at yourself in the mirror and said, I'm doing something positive for me or my family or for the world, that's successful.
awesome. Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Paul, this has been such a great conversation. We'll have to do round two down the line,
Would
but
love that.
thank you. Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you so much. Great chatting, and I appreciate you being here. Epic stuff.
Cheers, Adrian. Thanks a million.
Okay, and just for all of the lifestyle lifters out there, if you did get value from the show and you want to hear more episodes like this, be sure to tag me at Mac Lifestyle Fitness on IG. Also tag Paul. If you listen to Paul, if you listen to this episode, you got value from it, tag me and tag Paul at summit underscore P and H, and both of us will reshare to our stories. But that is all for this week's episode. If you're not already doing so, I would please ask you to subscribe. Podcasts are generally the slowest platform to grow, but the most optimal way to do it is through word of mouth by sharing it with a friend and subscribing, which will push this out to more people. So if you do get value from the show, that is the only thing that both Paul and I will ask for. And until next week, Lifestyle Lifters, have a fantastic week.